By the end, the drug barely worked at all. The high had thinned to almost nothing, a flat, gray echo of the thing that once felt like being saved. And still, the craving was the loudest it had ever been. This is one of the cruelest facts in all of neuroscience, and most people have it exactly backwards. We assume someone chases a drug because of how good it makes them feel, that the pleasure is the engine, and the addiction is just wanting more of that pleasure. But for someone deep in addiction, the pleasure is often the first thing to die. The enjoyment burns out, sometimes completely, and the desire keeps climbing anyway. The wanting outlives the liking. And the reason why hides something strange about the way your brain is built, something that has nothing to do with pleasure at all. To see how odd this is, you have to notice something you've never had a reason to question. In everyday life, wanting and liking feel like a single thing. You want the coffee because you like the coffee. You crave the food because the food is good. They rise and fall together so smoothly that it never occurs to you they could be separate at all. But what if they aren't one system? What if I want this and I like this are produced by two different machines inside your head, machines that usually run side by side but can be pulled apart? For most of the last century, scientists assumed there was a single pleasure system in the brain and that this same system drove desire. The truth turned out to be far stranger. And it began with a wiring accident in a laboratory in the year 1954. Two researchers, James Olds and Peter Milner, were studying the brains of rats. By accident, an electrode ended up in an unintended spot deep in the reward circuitry. When they let a rat trigger a tiny jolt of stimulation there itself by pressing a lever, something disturbing happened. The rat pressed it again, and again, and then it would not stop. Some animals pressed that lever thousands of times an hour. They ignored food. They ignored sleep. They pressed until they collapsed from exhaustion. The scientists believed they had found the brain's pleasure center, a spot so blissful that an animal would give up everything else just to feel it. For decades, that was the story. A pleasure center. But a researcher named Berridge spent years testing whether it was actually true, and what he found quietly took it apart. The animals pressing that lever didn't look like creatures drowning in pleasure. They looked frantic, driven, almost tormented. They behaved less like something savoring a reward and more like something desperate to reach one. Berridge began to suspect the brain wasn't generating pleasure in that spot at all. It was generating want. To prove it, he needed a way to measure pleasure directly, separate from desire. And there is one. When a newborn human tastes something sweet, the face softens and the tongue makes small, rhythmic licking movements. Taste something bitter and the mouth gapes and the head shakes. Rats do almost exactly the same thing. The language of liking is written on the face, and it's nearly identical across species. So Berridge could finally watch liking itself. Then he flooded the animal's brains with dopamine, the chemical almost everyone calls the pleasure molecule. Their wanting for food shot up, they pursued it harder, worked harder for it. But their faces showed no extra pleasure at all. More dopamine made them want more. It did not make them like it more. The pleasure chemical, it turned out, wasn't producing pleasure. There was a second clue hiding in the timing of the dopamine itself. When researchers watched exactly when the chemical fired, they found it didn't wait for the reward to arrive. With experience, the surge crept earlier and earlier until it was firing at the cue that predicted the reward, the signal, the warning that something good was on its way, rather than at the moment the good thing actually landed. The brain was spending its dopamine not on the having, but on the anticipating. The wanting system was always leaning forward, aimed at whatever came just before the reward, priming the body to chase before any pleasure had happened at all. If that were true, it should also work in reverse. Take the dopamine away, and an animal should still be able to enjoy a reward, it just wouldn't bother to go and get it. And that is exactly what happens. Scientists engineered mice whose brains could make no dopamine at all. These mice did not lose the ability to enjoy food. Place sweet taste in their mouths, and their faces showed the same pleasure reaction as any other mouse. They liked it completely. They simply would not cross the cage to reach it. Without dopamine, the wanting was gone, and these animals would sit beside food and slowly starve, still perfectly able to enjoy every bite they never took. Now hold those two facts together, because this is where it reaches into human addiction. Liking and wanting are separate systems, and they do not have to move together. The pleasure system is small, fragile, easily worn down. The wanting system built on dopamine is large, robust, and something worse, it can be sensitized. Berridge and his colleague Terry Robinson found that in vulnerable brains, repeated drug use doesn't tire the wanting system out. It does the opposite. It makes that system grow stronger, more reactive, more explosive, and those changes can last for years. The drug carves the wanting deeper every single time, even as the pleasure it delivers gets thinner. And the pleasure really does get thinner. That part is not in the person's imagination. The liking system, small and easily exhausted, wears down under repeated assault. The brain, flooded again and again, quietly turns down its own sensitivity to hold its balance. So the same dose that once delivered something overwhelming now delivers a fraction of it, and then a fraction of that. This is tolerance, and most people think of it as the whole story of addiction, the endless chase to feel the first high again. But tolerance is only one half of what's happening. While the liking burns down, the wanting is being turned up. So the two curves split apart and run in opposite directions. Liking slides down toward nothing. Wanting climbs toward the sky. And a sensitized wanting system doesn't even need the drug to fire. It learns to fire at the sight of the things around the drug. A lighter, a certain time of day, an old friend. Any one of these can slam the wanting system to maximum, flooding a person with a craving so total that it drowns out everything they know long after the drug stopped giving them anything in return. This is why relapse can strike years into recovery, set off by nothing more than a place. The pleasure was gone. The wanting was never really about pleasure. Picture what that actually feels like from the inside. A person who knows, truly knows, that the drug will not give them what it once did. They remember the early days, and they understand those days are gone for good. And none of that knowledge helps, because the part of the brain screaming for it isn't listening to memory or reason or regret. It isn't asking whether the drug still works. It is only pointing with overwhelming force at a cue it has been trained for years to chase. And here is the thought that should unsettle you. This split between wanting and liking isn't a glitch that only shows up in addiction. It's running inside all of us all the time. It's the design of the system itself. Your brain was never built to make you happy. It was built to make you pursue, to chase food, warmth, status, sex, safety, and it uses the feeling of wanting as the leash. Pleasure was only ever a small reward handed out along the way, and the brain is perfectly willing to keep you chasing things long after they've stopped making you happy. You have felt a quieter version of this. The notification you reach for and feel nothing when you open. The feed you can't put down that you don't actually enjoy. The second drink, the next episode, the thing you wanted so badly and barely registered once it was finally yours. That is the same machinery, only turned down low. Addiction is what happens when a drug reaches into that system and cranks the wanting up to a level no ordinary reward can touch, and then jams the dial there. So when someone deep in addiction says they don't even enjoy it anymore, and they reach for it anyway, they aren't lying, and they aren't weak. They're describing with painful accuracy how the brain actually works. Wanting and liking were always two different things wearing the same face, and a drug is something that can quietly kill one while it feeds the other, until a person is left chasing, with everything they have, a ghost that stopped giving them anything at all. We tend to believe that desire is proof something is good for us. It was never proof of anything. It was only ever the brain pointing and trusting that you'd follow. Thank you for spending this time here. If the hidden machinery of your own mind is the kind of thing you can't stop turning over, stay a while and subscribe. There is always something stranger running underneath.